Sarcastic, witty, and not afraid to mix it up. Pop open a cold one and welcome to Three Dadbods.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Three Dadbods with Brent, Karl, and Sean. We've got Brent and Karl here today. And let me ask you a question. You ever had that feeling where, later that evening, you're going to have like a giant steak dinner that you've been craving. You've been waiting for it like all week long. And so it's the day you're going to go out. Oh God, it's just the best steak you've ever had. It's so juicy, so succulent. So you don't eat anything at all. You're getting yourself ready because that's all you want right there is that steak. It's the best thing you've ever had. And you finally get time for that steak and you put it in your mouth and it's the best taste in the world. And that is the feeling of college football. College football is back. We've been waiting for that steak. We've been fasting. We've been waiting for it to finally come. And it has finally arrived and is just as good as we wanted it to be. It is so incredible.
Here's another way to look at it, though. You've been craving this steak all week. You know it's your favorite restaurant. You get there. And then you found out the power went out for an hour. And everything's not cooked as well as it usually is. And it's just not what you were expecting. Or on Christmas morning, you wanted the Red Ryder shotgun. You were dying for it, and Dad bought you the Kmart Band-Aid flipper, or you know what I'm saying? It's just
you ordered the garlic mashed potatoes and you got the brushed up cauliflower instead as your side.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was like,
Buddy,
I agree with
you, man.
Yet yesterday, today, and tomorrow will be it's the biggest weekend for college football fans. I mean, there's no better weekend, but
you're right too. Like if all right, you should be okay though. You pulled out the win against that high school from Texas. You should be happy that they're a very powerful team, high-powered offense. You shut them out.
Yeah.
Be happy about that. But can you imagine being like a Baylor fan or being Texas Tech fan? And look, like you and I know this because we've grown up out west. Going into Laramie, Wyoming is not an easy win.
Oh no,
ever. And they're lucky. They're lucky to do it in September.
Well,
we've had teams in there in November, and that is pure hell.
And I was watching part of that game. Texas Tech was up 17-0 in 5 minutes. I mean, it was.
You know what it is?
I was like, wow.
You know what it is?
Altitude.
7,200 feet.
Yeah.
It plays a toll, and you saw it on Florida's face on Thursday night against the Utes. Altitude plays a toll.
Yeah.
And, right now the media darling and the ESPN push and drive right now is on Colorado. And as well it should be. Colorado we didn't think they had a chance against TCU. We didn't think they could stand a chance against them.
Can you imagine TCU fan right now after being in the college championship final the year before?
Yeah.
And they play a 21-point underdog and they get beat?
Yeah.
Ow.
Not only that, you give up a quarterback whose first start in big boy football, 550 yards of passing.
No, I think Colorado might be the real deal. I mean, Pac-10, Pac-12.
I don't know about real deal. And remember too, last year TCU, their defense was not great. TCU in the years past has been known for their special teams and their defense. Last year, they got blitzed. that championship game. It's terrible.
Well,
it's
isn't
a horrible
it Sonny
thing
Dykes,
to see.
Mike Leach?
Right.
Mike's teams had some good defense. He always
Mike Leach never had good defense.
Washington State, he did. they weren't bad.
If it was because of his defensive coordinator. But you are correct. Mike Leach, one of the best offense. He's the inventor of the spread offense. Groomed quarterbacks from Texas Tech in there, from day one, lighted up unusual plays. That was Mike Leach. Which, by the way,
speaking of Mike Leach, college football was so robbed. I mean, could you imagine that guy on game day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the very best interviews, And having him and Lane Kiffin in the same conference
Oh,
made every press conference so incredibly awesome. Every Mike Leach was like Bobby Knight, it's without the anger
yeah.
issues. But you would always watch their press conferences. And Mike Leach, my favorite one from him was when he's talking about the Texas A&M Aggie section, military group and all that. And he's like, the school, they're not part of the military. I mean, what is that? Like, I think that I should have a group called Mike's Pirates, and they'll wear a bunch of pirate patches on their heads, and they'll wave black flags around, and we'll go yippee-ki-yay, yippee-ki-yay. And so that's where you started to see the patch all around wherever Mike went was from that comment there. But his Halloween comment of the candy acorns being the worst candy in the world. Just a
Well,
great man, and so
look,
sorry to lose that guy.
let's talk a little bit about where the Ute fans kind of appropriated part of Mike Leach's mystique, the pirate ship. Let's talk about those Utes. Let's talk about that game because that was the first game of this weekend, and I actually watched my first Utah game all the way up until about halfway through the third quarter. And then I was like, I mean,
I think
I'm
that you
sorry.
have the same sentiment as everybody else,
Yeah.
except for who was there in the stadium. And you could feel the buzz in the stadium die down about the same point that you're talking about because
I think it's Kyle. He just shuts it down when he doesn't want to
he he
take a
he
risk.
did, and it's almost like he went to playing 5 plays. We're
Yeah.
gonna just run these 5 plays in the second half, and that's all we're gonna run. We don't want to open up our playbook anymore. We don't want to see what we got now. It started out fantastic.
Oh, that first
Pig farmer,
pass. Wow.
pig farmer comes in, 70-yard bomb, boom. And I was up in the air.
I mean, and it was a good
Um,
pass. I mean, it was right on the money. The guy didn't even break stride. He just boom, touchdown.
yeah.
I think Florida was a little shocked. I don't think they realized Utah had speed, on especially on the receiver
And
side.
you played him last year, so you would have to know that. Like everybody's back.
Well, that's a good point. You brought up a good point. Everybody's back. Well, are they? With
Well, our tight end's gone,
yeah.
and you don't know what to expect with Cam out of there.
Hmm.
Um, but I think as a Utah fan, my impression was we look very, very good for the future. I think we're going to be a very good team this year. We're not going to be a playoff team. Let's just throw that little push out of the way. However, next year and the year after, this team is extremely young. They start a lot of true freshmen. We saw what our future is like at quarterback, and this freshman kid, right now his arm's a little crazy, as expected. First game out there, nerves going, you're going to overthrow stuff, but he's got a strong arm, and this kid can run. My goodness, he can run.
Well, I think you guys are. I think Cam is a good point. I think once he comes back, the offense is going to look a little more consistent. The only problem with the U offense right now, from a BYU perspective, someone doesn't follow you guys as closely. The only thing that stood out to me in that game is you couldn't run the ball, not effectively. I felt like your running back just isn't as good as last year. What's his name? Groves, or I don't know.
But let me say too, Florida's defensive line,
They're good.
you got
They're
a
big
kid on
boys.
there that was 460 pounds.
I mean, those guys, that's bigger than me, man. So that guy
It
was
was
huge.
gigantic.
The other thing that struck me, the receivers, I think your tight ends are amazing. You guys have done a lot with tight ends. I wish
They've
BYU.
always had great tight ends, though. Over the last 10 years, look at all the tight ends that have been there, and it's that same. Look, I'll give it to Kyle and his coordinators. They always have the safety release as the tight end, and it's
Yeah.
worked very well.
Your D line looks good again this year. Even the
Defense
backups.
looks very good.
Yeah. The only thing they could do, the only thing Florida could do was run the ball inside, and I think that was just because you lost that linebacker early in the game, and he's
Yes,
the
yeah.
heart of your defense, and so
Linebacker and end on there, yeah,
yeah,
and that did hurt. You could see that, and I actually pointed that out to you. I think in the game is like
yeah.
we're getting killed up the middle, man.
I mean, other than that, though, you guys look solid on D. I wouldn't have been worried at all, and that's probably why Kyle just. mean, because that freshman kid, I mean, he's exciting runner. I was a little
Yeah.
he's a little suspect throwing the ball right now, and I don't think he's ready prime time yet for a long season. That's why I think it's good you guys have Cam. I think Bert,
Great start too, though, man. I mean, you get to play against Florida.
yeah.
That's a pretty
The
good
pi-
tune-up.
the pig farmer though, it's good to know you guys. You know, if I'm a Ute fan, you'd good to know you have a solid backup that won't throw away the game. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
most important thing. I mean, that was kind of a fluke, that first pass, of course. That they just didn't expect it, but
Hey, if you're going to do it, that's when you do it.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
first play of the game, fake inside, jet outside, ball straight down, perfect pass. Well, it did hang a little, but still, very good pass.
Well,
Kudos, good
well,
job.
if I'm a U fan and I'm a BYU fan, I'm happier about that game against a good quality team than the game I had to watch last night. So it's kind of odd. I mean, I did cut Sam Houston State. I don't know how good or bad they are. It's hard to tell. I mean, some people were saying this guy held back all his players from the year previous, and
So
I don't care.
they're like a D2 school, are they? I mean, they're
No,
not even.
they're a D1 school now, but
Are they?
barely, barely. And so and they've won some D1 or D1 AA championships, big deal. So I'm sitting there watching the game, and I was told all off season how great Keldon Slavis is, which I was kind of questioning because he didn't look so great last year at Pittsburgh. And then how we got all these great skill players, and the offensive line's the best ever, and the defense, so I don't know, it could be rough. Actually, the defense with the Hill guy that came over as coach, defense miles better than the Tuiaki defense from last year. So I was happy about that. Defense shut them out, and I don't think Sam Houston looked like they could mount anything during the entire game, which, surprise, surprise, BYU coaches, if you rush the quarterback and you put pressure on him, good things happen on D. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, I should be elementary. So the thing that's scary, though, if I'm a Kook fan, and I am, is Keldon Slovis
Running
looked
back.
horrible. Actually,
That running back looked good. That freshman running back that
oh,
came in.
he looked good. Yeah, LJ Martin.
Yeah.
That
Now
kid's
again, it's
good.
against Sam Houston, so I don't know
Yeah.
what that really shows, but he came in and started giving a spark where that offense was completely lifeless.
Well,
Absolutely lifeless.
well, I think maybe the line wasn't as bad as the fact that that Robbins kid that came in from UNLV. That's probably the problem. He came from UNLV. He would hesitate before he hit the line, where LJ Martin would just crash that line and find the
Right.
opening.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
in college football, D1 level, you can't hesitate. You got
Can't
to
stop.
go.
You
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 got to
cannot
go.
stop. You got to hit your hole, and you got to just run over any lineman that's in your way. You got to have faith that your line is going to open it up and hit that hole. Because you're right. The minute that you stop, you got people coming in on the ends. You got people coming in the middle. It's just too much speed. Even
So
from a Sam Houston, there's too much speed.
it was just a boring game, man. I
It
was
was rough, buddy.
that's why I say it was still steak, but it was kind of not done right, and I kind of walked out of the restaurant going, God, what happened, Kalani? I need some more. I need better. I need a better trip this next time around, because I don't know,
Was
man.
it cooked a little? Was it too well done? Is that
Yeah,
what it
I had
was?
to
It's
send
just
it
too
back to the
cooked.
waiter like 3 times. I mean, I think he microwaved it. Actually, that's what happened. But all I'm really happy about is it was almost 12:30 when I went to bed. But I was imagining it. Imagine if you'd gone to that game, you'd still be out on
Oh,
I-15, wondering how the hell am I going to get home tonight? Because I mean, it's a nightmare getting out of that stadium after a game. So,
man.
hey, let's talk about some of the a couple of the other big games though. Tennessee looked
Well,
great. I mean,
but before we touch
yeah,
into that, I
yeah.
want to kind of. So I watched that documentary that we were talking about earlier with Urban Meyer with
Oh
the
yeah,
swamp
yeah. You
and
saw that.
stuff, and a couple things as I was watching that and stuff, like what struck me funny is like after Urban won that first national championship and he's talking about how, hey, now I can just enjoy life and just relax and cruise through things, and then he stops and goes, boy, was I wrong, and um
I know how they set that
Paul.
up good. It was
Yeah,
well done.
and Paul Feinstein said something on there that's extremely accurate. And if you live in the South, you understand this because living in Tennessee, I can honestly tell you, college football is 365 days a year.
Oh yeah.
It is nonstop. It is bigger than professional football. It's bigger than baseball. It's bigger than basketball. There's nothing larger than college football in the South. It is life. You love people or you hate people based off of the teams that you like and that you follow. It divides households. And one of the things that Paul Feinbaum talked about, I think I said Feinstein, I apologize, this is Paul Feinbaum,
You're right.
is yes,
Skinny one.
and he's the voice of the SEC. He really is.
He
And
looks like a. You know what's funny? And the first time I saw that guy, I was like, "What's this like economics professor geeky looking
yeah,
dude talking
exactly. Yeah.
about football for?" Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So he talked about losing in the SEC. And losing in the SEC is honestly like having your dog killed,
It's like a
your
death.
close pet.
Yeah.
It is. You're just it's just a dagger. And if that happens again, oh my God. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what school you're at, you're now worried about your job. And you hit that third loss, you might as well start sending your resume out to other schools because you're not going to be, it doesn't matter what your name is. Last year, Nick Saban, and I don't care what anybody says, I'm not a big Alabama fan, but Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach that ever coached football. You can say what you want, but in today's era, the comparison is between him and Bear Bryant. But in today's college football, with today's
Rules.
athlete and today's rules, there is nobody better than Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And Nick Saban lost 2 games last year by a total of 3 points. Okay, he's 4 points away from being undefeated and in a national championship game.
Yeah.
And with those 2 losses, the great Nick Saban with 6 championships, ruler of college football, had hate mail and everything calling for his job. That's how vicious the SEC is. And so as I was watching the Florida game and I'm looking at the coach,
Oh, he's done. He's done.
but you look at his face, you can see
The stress.
the tension built up on him. Who wants to have that kind of tension? And keep in mind, in the 110-year history of Florida football, they have won 3 national championships. It's not like they're a powerhouse with 19 championships,
Well, and that makes
3.
Lavell and even Urban before he went out there, Kyle. You can see why it's so much easier out here for those guys because they're
Absolutely.
like gods.
You look at Kyle, and you know what? Kyle loses 3 games, and there's going to be some chirping and stuff like that. But Kyle isn't like, his face isn't like distraught on the sideline. He's
No.
breaking a smile. And that's what I was going to say, just what you were talking about, that I understand that these schools are the pinnacle and the cream of the crop, but do you really want to put your personal health and the safety of your family and I mean, you get death threats. They know the names of every one of your kids, your wife, your mother, your father, your mother-in-law. They hound that.
Docu-series on the Auburn Alabama rivalry,
Yeah,
and
yes.
how
Oh
some
God.
idiot Tide fan burned down the 2 trees on campus, Auburn's campus.
No, he didn't burn them down. He put stakes in them.
Oh my gosh.
He put metal stakes in it, and these trees are over like
200.
150 years old.
Yeah.
They are a tradition. They are life. They are what that campus is. And the guy admitted that on the Paul Feinbaum show. He
Yeah.
called in and said, "I'm the guy that drove those stakes in, and I would do it to anybody from Auburn." And
Now he's in
it is
jail,
pure
or
hate.
he spent some time in jail for that.
Yes,
So
yes.
anyway, that yeah, you're right. Southern fans are psycho, but I don't know. Well, tell me, who impressed you this weekend?
It's This weekend is difficult just because of the quality of teams that you're playing also. Now, anytime you see a school put 81 points up on the board like Oregon did,
Yeah.
it is against Portland State,
Ooh.
but still, that tells you a little something in there. Ole Miss put up 71 points.
Yeah.
Um, Tennessee looked very good.
Yeah.
They started off 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, and I was a little, I don't know about this. And then, wow. I mean, their defense, last year they led the nation in scoring, and they led the nation in plays being run. I mean, they run fast, but they would struggle sometimes in defense. And in that game, they did not struggle in defense. They had 12 tackles for a loss.
One
I mean,
one game that kind of surprised me a little bit was Penn State. Well, it didn't surprise me because I know
mm,
Penn State's pretty decent, but
but they didn't win gigantic.
yeah, but it was close in the first half, but then in the second half, Penn State rolled. But you expect
Yeah.
that at Penn State, you know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah.
should happen.
One of the hardest places to play. I mean,
Yeah,
Penn State at nighttime in a whiteout.
yeah.
God, that's an electric atmosphere. It really is.
Well, UCF
So
looked dang good. I was a little shocked how
I
good
didn't
they
see any of
looked.
that.
I'm just talking about the Big 12 teams. Cincinnati looked good. So I'm now going. Maybe we win 3 games this year. I'm starting to get nervous because if they don't figure out their offensive issues, BYU, they're in trouble. I think Utah solidly will. I mean, I think USC looking a little better after that second game, but of course they're playing cupcakes still.
Yeah,
And who knows how good Oregon is? Washington, holy crap, they put a beat down on
that
Boise.
was a good one.
Wow.
And Boise State, typically at the beginning of the year, those first games, they usually play really well.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a
you're
different
right.
type of
They
Boise
usually at
State
least
too, though.
well they'll compete at least. I've never seen a Boise State team get smacked down that hard though. I was like,
And they
wow.
got smacked. And Washington looked. You are right. Washington looked very good.
Yeah.
At least against Boise State.
Well,
North Carolina looked good against South Carolina.
Well, the nice thing in
Um,
the Pac-12 North is you've got Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, and even Washington State. Those 4 teams will beat up on each other, and then down in the South, I don't think you really have to worry. You've got only USC to worry about because Arizona State did not look good. Arizona sucks. I don't think Cal's going
why
to be
isn't
amount to
anybody
much.
going after Oregon State? Why isn't a big conference going after Oregon State? They're
I
ranked like 17th this year,
I don't know.
or
I kind of
18th.
wish the Big 12 would have like just taken Washington State and Oregon State, but I don't know. Washington State was playing Colorado State, so that was that was a
That
neck.
was ugly.
That's going to be a Mountain West. I mean, here's the thing. Everybody's feeling sorry for them, and I do too a little bit as far as money wise. But here's, and they kind of got themselves in trouble though. Let's not fool ourselves. These Pac-10 schools over the years.
Do you think that's motivation for those two schools, for
Yeah, I
Oregon
mean,
State and
well, think
Washington
about it.
State?
Well, depending on how the college football playoff is set up, I mean, your path, if you go to the Mountain West right now, if you're a Colorado, Washington State, and Oregon State, and let's face it, it's going to make that conference a little bit better having those 2 teams in there.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's say you win it, and I don't see how you couldn't if you're Oregon State your first year in 2024, and you go to the college playoff as the best G5 team at that point. That shouldn't be that difficult. You're never going to get that chance if you go to the Big 12. You're never going to get that chance in the ACC.
Right.
Stanford, Cal, they're never going to get that shot. SMU is never going to be ACC champion. Sorry, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, you tell me. I mean, does BYU and Utah have a better shot in the Big 12? No, it's all about money, man. It's all about
Yeah.
money and being in that next. If you can build your program big enough, strong enough, and you can somehow slip into that final 40, that's going to be the final number of the super conference that happens in about 5 years or 6 years or 10 years. Then I guess you have to take that risk. But I mean, we were talking about basketball the other day, right? And I mean, that's going to be murderer's row for both BYU and Utah basketball. I mean, uh, I don't even.
I think the flip side to that, though, is when your team plays in the Mountain West Conference,
Yeah, no one
and
cares.
yeah, well, it's not that no one cares. You're not going to get the quality of athlete that you would get, even though Stanford and Cal are going into the ACC,
Yeah.
they're still going to get a higher quality of athlete than they would inside the Mountain West. Now, again, you are correct, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens to these long distance travels, how they affect the student athlete. Because again, let's remember, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids going to school that are having to fly 2,000, 2,500 miles for a weekend game during school time. That's going to take a toll,
Oh yeah.
it's not like the pros where, like, they'll finish a game on Sunday at home, and then, they'll have a day off, and then they'll do a walkthrough, and then like on Wednesday they're traveling to Pittsburgh or wherever, and they'll spend the night in a nice hotel and have practice facilities and do all that stuff. It's a different type of situation. Rutgers does not have fantastic practice facilities. It's not the way it works.
No, you're right.
So
You're
it's
you're.
going to be interesting to see what happens.
Well, it's just like too, and it's going to affect recruiting a little bit because I'll tell you. Okay, so my son, in cross country, you have maybe 5 events during the whole season, including even the national championship. So there's not a lot, and most of them are not at home. Most of them are away, and if they're not regional, then you're traveling quite a ways. And so,
Right.
as a parent, I mean, it's ridiculous for those parents in California. You're going to have to fly out to the East Coast every time you want to see your kid. Sometimes you're rarely going to have that many home games to go to. So I agree with that. I think on the college football level, I was talking to you about this. Okay, Nebraska kid, right? He gets to play in the
Hmm.
Big Ten. Whoopee! But the kid was from Texas before, that they recruited. Why are they
Right.
losing? Why are they not winning in the Big Ten? It's because they're not recruiting Texas, Florida, the areas that they used to recruit quite well. They're stuck in the Big Ten. And who's dominates the Big Ten recruiting? It's Michigan, Ohio State. It's not changed. It's the same.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
never going to beat those guys at their own game up in the Great Lakes area, in the Chicago area. So
Yeah. And you look at those great Tom Osborne teams,
yeah,
you look at those rosters, they're all from
all
Texas.
from
They're all from
Texas.
Texas, and they're all from Southern California.
Now
That
Oklahoma and
that's
Texas are
where the
making
kids came
a,
from.
and Texas A&M, they all made good moves because I mean, let's cut to the chase. The best college athlete high school kids are all in the South and Texas. Period. So it's not
True.
affecting them. I think this is a good thing for BYU and Utah ultimately because they're going to be able to recruit a lot heavier in Texas and in Florida, and you're going to see some positive changes there. So I don't know. We'll see how this all rolls out. I think there is. I mean, I guess the whole rivalry thing I'm not as worried about because, of course, BYU and Utah are in the same conference again. But if we weren't, I'd be like, okay, this sucks, So I guess I don't have the same pain as some college football fans are having right now. I just think those are left out of the big show. All the like the Washington State and Oregon State fans right now. I do feel for them. I mean, the,
Yeah.
their options right now suck. I mean, just suck. I mean, woohoo! We get to play San Jose State this weekend. Oh, we get to go to Logan. Actually, they'll like it. It's a nice place, but good ice cream. But
You know what? Iowa surprised me because they've never had an offense at all. And I said before that game, I said, hey, I'm picking Utah State in the
oh,
upset in this. And Iowa they got off to they were a lot like the Utes. They got off to a quick start, and then they just kind of pulled the rein backs and
mhm. Do you
kind of
think
let
part of
things
that?
settle for a bit.
I was going to say, I think you're right about Whittingham just pulling the playbook back. I think there's a lot of that going on like yesterday. I mean, no reason to even starters. I mean, some guys that are questionable, like BYU, Cody Epps, the guy wasn't ready. I mean, he could have played, he didn't. They had, Utah had some guys that weren't playing in that game that could have played. I'm sure, like Cam. I'm sure Cam could have played. I don't think anybody wanted him to play, and I think that they played Baylor, which now I'm not too worried about that game if I'm a U fan.
Well, but let me ask you, in defense of Baylor though,
Oh, they looked
do
horrible.
you think that athlete was looking at Texas State and not really looking at them, and they were looking at Utah the following week?
Well,
Utah's coming in ranked 14th. They saw them on Thursday night against Florida. I mean, do you think that they were like, this is just a practice
well,
game. We don't need
to
to, and they were looking
yeah,
ahead.
defend Texas State and UTSA, University of Texas Southern. Now, this in Sam Houston State even can fall in the same boat. Those are all Texas teams. Yes, they're small teams. They get the 3-star kids that the big schools don't get, but they're still Texas athletes, and they play
Hmm.
in Texas high school football leagues. They're good, and that's what BYU Utah fan need to realize. These kids coming in
Yeah,
from Sam Houston won national championships at the D1 level or D1 AA level or sub football level, whatever the hell they call that.
right.
So Texas State and UTSA, when their COVID thing happened and BYU had to all of a sudden come up with this, schedule from scratch, they played both of those teams. Those were the only teams that played BYU tough from the Sun Belt. So I fully expect both of those teams. I think maybe they're both in Conference USA. I'm not sure, but they're going to win those leagues. Those guys are good athletes. So
And let's be honest that a 3-star athlete out of Texas is a different quality of
oh
kid than a
yeah.
3-star athlete out of Colorado.
Well,
It's
L.J. Martin, that kid that BYU has, he's only a 3-star. That kid's the best. I think he's the best player on the team as a freshman right now. I'm looking at it going,
mhm.
okay, I know who should start. I mean, the fact that it took him so long to get the guy in the game, I was like, what are you waiting for, Kalani? Just put the kid in. If he can do it in off season all along, or summer camp, put him in. Let's see what he does, and he did great. So, and I think that's what all Kyle was trying to do with the freshman quarterback kid. That kid, he did break some ankles on that one touchdown run.
Yep,
That was impressive. I was like, whoa.
he did. And but I think Kyle's doing it the right way. I think that you don't. I think the temptation would be, let's just let the reins go with this kid. But he's a freshman. He's only 18 years old.
Yeah,
It is Florida.
it is Florida.
This is a lot of, and that's a lot of confidence that he was able to build. You slowly bring him because we all know when Cam's ready, it's Cam's show. Rightfully so. This is Cam's team. We all know that. So let's don't get his hyped up, but let's get his experience going and get him some reps and get him some momentum and let him feel this atmosphere that's around here. Because playing in Utah with that Muse section, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, it's loud, it's ruckus, it's great, it's insane.
Well, we'll see what happens next week. We've got. I mean, it's way too early. I know BYU plays another
It is.
Southern Utah, another cupcake. You guys play Baylor, which should be an
Yeah.
interesting game. I know Baylor will be
Yeah,
coming
I
back.
don't think it's going to be a blowout.
No,
I don't think this is going to be some game where Utah goes in, it's like 55-3.
no.
I think it's probably going to be like a 24-21. I think it's going to be a very hard-fought game. There's going to be a lot of turn. We're going to see a lot of the errors and mistakes and stuff come out. It's
Yeah.
I hope that the coaching staff for Utah looks at that Baylor game and tells the boys that's not what you're going to be playing.
Is Cam?
That's not who you're playing next week.
You think Cam's going to be back next week?
I thought he was going to play on Thursday,
Uh,
so I don't know.
all right. Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm looking at next week's games
mhm.
again, and this is the difficult part. Like Georgia opens up with UT Martin this
That
week,
was pathetic.
and then next week they play Ball State at home. How'd you like to be a season ticket holder for this bullshit? I
No,
mean,
and
there's your opening stuff right there.
and you know what? And it was funny because I go to Kitten Board, your favorite place, all the time before games, and you had people bitching about paying $190 for the game last night, which I don't blame after watching it. I was like, "Oh, this sucked."
Yeah, yeah,
But
yep,
but I mean, Cougar fan, you better get used to that because it's going to get worse. I mean, I heard
yeah,
already that the Oklahoma BYU game tickets are going for over $300 right now. On the
oh yeah,
yeah, it's like it's getting crazy. So welcome to big time football. I mean, and I think
yeah,
don't they have the same problem at RES? I mean, getting tickets there, and I think in the South, I mean, going to a Tennessee game. I mean, with Alabama coming to town, I mean, how hard is it to get that
yeah. I
ticket?
mean, they don't play. We had Alabama last year, but
Yeah.
you look at this week we're actually going to the I'm going to the Austin P game this upcoming weekend,
Oh,
and because it's easy, simple game to get into and stuff. But then
what the heck,
we
right?
Tennessee plays Texas San Antonio at home on,
Well,
on
really?
September 23rd.
Oh, they still.
UTSA,
How many
they do.
patsies do they have this year?
So they ha- and look, Virginia is, yes, they are an ACC team, but they're at the bottom tier of that
Yeah,
ACC conference.
they didn't look good.
One thing about Virginia though is they had a lot of emotion coming out because I don't know if you remember last year in November they had that school shooting
Oh, that's
which
right.
took
That's
the
right.
lives of three of their football players, shot the fourth player. He's the one that led the team out on the field. A
Oh,
lot of emotion, and rightfully so. There was a moment of silence. Flowers were laid down in their end zone, had their numbers in the back of the end zone and stuff. So they had a lot of emotion going, and they looked somewhat, decent. But so like Tennessee, they got Austin P at home. Then they travel to Florida. And yes, you can say whatever you want about Florida and blah blah blah, but it is a huge rivalry game, much like every other game in the SEC, and it's never easy to win on the road in the SEC, no matter what team you are. It's the equivalent of a Utah and BYU. BYU may have the shittiest season going in, but when Utah comes to town, it's going to be a bloodbath, and it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be tooth and nail. It doesn't matter what kind of season the other team has had. Um,
yeah. I was.
then like they've got
You're so right on that. I was watching this old video on KSL. It was the '82 Utah BYU game, which BYU was favored to win by 50 points, and Utah, I mean, gave them a battle, and it was like 17 to
right.
14. Lavell Edwards was like, "Hey, Utah looks at this game like we do. It's the biggest game of the year, and they're going to give us their best shot. And these guys are college kids, and they're good athletes. And so, you're right, Brent. I mean, you have to be ready every game.
And and so I'm going to tell you the Tennessee and college football does feel better. And you heard it a couple times when Tennessee's doing well, college football actually feels better. But they, year after year, always have the most difficult football schedule. I don't care what anybody says. There's no team that plays a more difficult college football schedule than Tennessee because they must play every single year Alabama and Georgia,
That's true.
the two very top teams. They have to play them every year, no matter what. And so,
Yeah.
like, listen to this schedule, okay? So they get South Carolina at home, who, by the way, South Carolina beat them by like 20 points last year. Then they have Texas A&M at home. Then the next week they have to travel to Alabama. Okay, so you get A&M, then you got to go to Alabama, then you have to go to Kentucky, and Kentucky, people can say blah blah blah, they're a
They're
basketball
good.
school. They still play pretty damn good football. Now you get a break when you got UConn coming home, and then you got to go to Missouri, and then you get Georgia at home. That's November 18th, and that's that Alabama and that Georgia game. And look, if you think Nick
Yeah.
Saban does not have that game marked on his calendar, if you don't think that every week Nick Saban is playing the video of Tennessee fans marching down Main Street with the goalposts, if you don't think that Nick Saban isn't replaying them playing Dixieland Delight in the loudspeakers over that is Alabama's song and they're playing it, he's going to motivate the hell out of that team.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be.
And it's going to be nighttime. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be on primetime TV for the nation to watch.
Yeah.
Mm.
I hear you. I'm looking at this year's
Mm.
schedule for even BYU, and I thought, well, we played 5 Pac-10 teams and beat most of them, and so I was feeling pretty good a couple of years ago. Now I'm looking at this schedule. I'm like, I just saw Oklahoma destroy Team 73-3 yesterday, and then Texas.
No, it was like 70-0. I don't think they allowed a point.
Then Texas absolutely annihilated another team, and I'm just like,
Rice.
yeah, we're not going to do well in those games. Oh boy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you, man. It's a different ball game when you're playing in these quote the big boys, and so I look, I get a little sensitive about my kittens, but here's the thing. I think it's going to help the program overall being in the Big 12, and I think 3 years, 4 years, maybe even. I think it's going to pay off. Now, BYU has a little more challenge in Utah with recruiting because of the church school thing going for it. So it'll affect it a little bit. But if you don't think, yeah, I don't know, I won't get into it because it'll be controversial. But I was going to say, if you don't think the honor code's been put on kind of, you know, it's just, it's a different ball game for athletes at BYU than their general student. And we can talk about that some other time, how that's unfair, but it really is. I mean, the athlete at BYU.
At what point does the almighty dollar begin to take precedent over your moral codes?
I mean, someone wants to argue with us about it in the Marty. If you're listening, if you want to argue with me on that, I mean, Sean would be agreeing with you. I kind of agree with you guys too. I think you're right. I think it comes to money is everything. Without money,
Because
you don't
look,
survive.
99% of those students going to that school are there for an education. Okay. But the vast majority of the money flowing into that school, coming from the boosters and everything, is geared towards college football.
And
And
look,
you have to win in college football.
the other thing at BYU too, those students that are complaining about how come a football guy gets treated differently, your tuition is supplemented by the LDS church and the tithe payers from the LDS church, and also from football. So you can complain and whine about it, but the reality is without big time college football at BYU, your tuition would be much higher. So
Right.
I mean, you want to see tuition, go out to the East Coast, go to Duke, go to Miami, go to a big 4-year school like Alabama and ask them what their tuition is, and then come back and look at your pay. I mean, it's not even close. So be happy, BYU student, that you do not have to pay the same tuition that everybody else does. So I think that's the argument you have to use, is just throw it back at them that way.
And I will also say, because I've been on the campus of Alabama before,
Yeah.
if you go there, it is one of the nicest schools you've ever been to. National championships build nice things.
Yes, it does.
And their dorms are spectacular. Their classrooms are magnificent. The programs that they have for their students are top tier. They really are. And you can say what you want about it being Alabama and in the South, blah, blah, blah. But if you step foot on that campus, it is different than stepping foot on, say, Oregon State. Okay. Um, it is different. It is a different feel. It's a different vibe. It's the difference of going to a modern city and a non-modern city.
Well,
That's the difference.
I think some fans have this mistaken belief that the money that is generated all goes to that program, and it doesn't. It goes the money that comes in at the University of Utah does not just go to Kyle Whittingham and his football program. A lot of that
Right.
money is distributed to the other programs, to buildings that they're building on campus, and it's a research university. So it's kind of like a team effort. That's why the research part is such a big deal to the University of Utah, and why moving to the Big 12 was kind of a big question mark for them, because
Yeah.
Stanford
Correct.
was like huge in research, and it was not being with Stanford. I mean, and Cal. it's a big deal. So,
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's why the ACC's like, yeah, okay. I mean, with those two at least, SMU,
Yeah, yeah,
I have don't know anything about them, but their boosters have a lot of money. Let's put it that way. SMU is not
yeah.
making a dollar on the TV deal the entire next 8 years. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like that before. But anyway, the point is that research money, the money that's coming in from the sports programs, it all helps the average student have an experience at that university. It's capitalism, basically, is what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and Tennessee has the Peyton Manning School of Business. He was a business graduate. In
Oh,
fact, he
really?
graduated from he came back and got his degree from there. Yeah.
I didn't know
And
that.
he
Huh.
actually so the main SEC sports studios are in that building.
Oh, really? Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah. And he puts a lot of money he invests a lot of time with the university. You see him at football games and stuff all the time. He's a very active member. And so it's look, that was one of the things that made my son want to go there. He's like, and my boy, he's never watched Peyton Manning play. I mean, maybe in pros every now and then,
Yeah.
but Peyton in this state is like the mystique that Lavell Edwards has in the state of Utah, you know. It Peyton could run for governor and he would be elected immediately.
But well, let's put it this way: the Mannings, they're a cool bunch. So
There.
even their dad Archie's always been okay. So here's a question: this is just college football prediction. When is Texas going to go with the Manning kid this year or next year?
I don't know. And you were talking about that they played Rice. They only won 37-10.
That's true.
It's not like it was a giant blowout
It
against
should have been
Rice.
60-10, but oh well.
To me, my opinion of Texas is, what have they done lately? They won the national championship with Mac Brown back in what, 2005, I think it was. And then before that, what did they do before that? Texas is one of these schools. It's like Florida. They're like Auburn. They're like these schools that think that they're a 10, but they're really like a 4.5.
Well, the other thing
You
too
know,
is everybody's talking about how great Steve Sarkisian is, but remember, he collapsed at Washington. Why? Because of the pressure. And he thought pressure
right,
was bad at Washington. The
right.
pressure when he goes in the SEC next year at Texas, it's going to be 10 times, 100 times
Now,
worse.
in defense to that, where did he go after that happened?
Where did he go? I kind of forgot.
Offensive
Oh, he
coordinator for
offensive coordinator at
Alabama.
Alabama. That's right. Yeah.
You look at the guys, what Nick Saban does is he takes guys that have been fired. Lane Kiffin, the
Yeah.
offensive coordinator at Alabama.
True.
And I love Lane Kiffin. There is nobody that knows offense like Lane Kiffin.
And he was
And
kind
Nick
of a
Saban would be the
punk.
first person
He
to
was
tell you,
kind of
oh
under a
yes,
punk
you're
after.
cocky and
Yeah.
everything. But I love Ole Miss. I love what he's done. He did what Urban Meyer did at Utah. He rebranded that program. Now it's come to the SIP. That's their big motto. It's all over everywhere. Come to the SIP. Come to the SIP. For Mississippi. And he's successful. He turned down and what you're talking about, pressure and stuff like that. He could have been the Auburn coach this year. Like they were giving him everything because he's been very successful at Ole Miss, and he said no because the pressure at Ole Miss is a whole lot less than the pressure at Auburn.
So
And he's successful he's successful at Ole Miss, and the the feeling is that, and there's the same feeling with Dabo also, is that when the time comes when Saban finally does step down,
Lane's going to slip in, huh?
Lane's going to come on in.
Well, that brings up a good question, a theoretical question. If Pete Carroll had stayed in the college ranks instead of going pro, would Pete be on the same level right now as Nick, and where would he be coaching at?
The reason why that is difficult to answer is because Pete left when the shit was starting to hit the fan
Oh yeah,
at USC
it was
with all
dirty.
those allegations. Yes, absolutely. Now, Pete stayed, and Pete had many opportunities to go to the NFL, but during that time, USC was the only football team in town. Yes, there was UCLA, but let's be honest. Like you had celebrities coming out to USC football. There were no Rams there. There were no Chargers there.
No,
It was USC football, and USC football was stacked. And we all know why. They were doing the same things that is now legal to do today, you know?
yeah. Hmm.
So during the time and dealing with things, I think he probably would have been put on probation and probably dismissed anyway. If it was in today's environment, that's a good question.
Well. With NIL, that brings out Pete could run a program where it's a little loose and still get away with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good question. Good point.
It,
So,
and so,
and it's almost
you
like
know,
NFL free agency right now with that portal. So, I
and
oh
and every good athlete in Southern California wants to go to SC.
okay.
They all want to go to SC.
One last thing we need to talk about college football, and this is a rule change that occurred this offseason, and I wonder how
Mm,
long it's going to last. The time,
the clock,
yeah,
the clock. Did you hear Chip Kelly?
it changes the game a lot. And it's going to get worse as we get
Did you hear Chip
into
Kelly, what he said?
what's that?
Did you hear what Chip Kelly said?
No, what did he say?
So at halftime, they asked him, and he's like, "This clock cost me 4 possessions. I hope you guys enjoyed your timeout money from that."
Wow. Well, he's right. It's gonna. I mean, if you're a good, so I was thinking last night, strategy wise, if I'm a coach, what am I gonna look at? Well, first of all, it does stop on an incomplete pass still, but it doesn't stop. So for running teams, especially power teams, they're going to have a limited number of possessions a game now. So it's so important that you start fast in every game
Yeah.
because if you don't, it's going to be very difficult to come back. As far as these high-powered octane that pass ball control pass teams too, the dink and dunk teams, that as well, because if you get a lot of completions in there to the middle of the field, that clock's just gonna, or even out of bounds, that clock's just gonna tick, 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 tick. So you're gonna limit the number of possessions you're gonna have. So a real strong defensive team, I think, is gonna have an advantage. Team that can get out fast is gonna have an advantage, or a vertical passing team is gonna have an advantage. Big play teams are gonna have advantage.
Does it give the advantage to the offense, or is this now a piece that finally gives a little bit of advantage to the defense?
I think it gives the
Because
D.
the
Yeah,
the rules right now are geared towards offensive football.
it's true.
It's very hard to play defense. Uh, so I think this is kind of like a little, nickel to the defensive coordinators and the defensive players. Like, all right, let's give them a little bit of help here.
Well,
Um,
it's really not about that though. It's about squeezing more
right,
games
right.
in and more ad revenue. I mean, let's be honest.
It's true.
ESPN's dying.
Let's,
They need more money.
yeah,
So the other
yeah,
thing I thought it was going to be cool is like the game was going to start on time. Because as a BYU fan, you're used to ESPN and Fox always having your game start late or you have to flip to the news channel, or in this case Fox FS2 last night for the first 10 minutes of the game because they can never schedule it right. Well, I was wrong. It still went over. So, I was thinking, man, yeah, this will be great. We can start the game on Fox 1 and, watch the kickoff without having to use 50 different media ways to see the first part of the game. Nope.
yeah.
Back to normal, but that's what you get when you're BYU out in the West. But
Do you know what I don't like about college football?
what's that?
Especially when you're at the game, okay? You're at the game. The game is tied 10-10, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other team is driving down. They draw back. They throw a pass in the end zone. Your player reaches out, gets the interception, runs down, takes it out of the end zone, and gets tackled on the 30-yard line. Place is going crazy, insane. Music's playing, the band's playing, the crowd is just ruckling. And then they go to commercial.
Yeah, the little guy with the red hat stands out there on the field, and you're like,
And then the buzz is just loud, and then it slowly
time to get a
fades.
beer.
And now you're quiet stadium waiting for the commercial to get over with, the guy in the red hat to come off of the field. Oh my God, this is taking so long. It's a 2-minute, 3-minute commercial break.
Then you get a lot of
You
people.
know what I mean?
Yeah, you get a lot of people doing the wave at Cougar Stadium.
Deflates everything. It's totally deflated.
Oh gosh, it's boring.
God, it's just it's terrible. You're amped, you're pumped, and then all of a sudden the commercial comes back and you like, what were we excited about again?
Okay.
What happened there?
I want to say something about game experiences. You can create some awesome game experiences on your big screen 60-inch television with 4K video from the game.
I watched 4 games at once yesterday.
Yeah, you can have the smoker going. You can have this amazing spread that didn't cost you an arm and a leg, and and then the maddening nightmare of trying to find parking, walking your guts out to get to the stadium, then climbing a bunch of stairs, dealing with the guy in front of you that has a stupid chair back that should have was probably made in 1974 that's digging into your
Right.
I mean, and then you got all these crazy students standing the entire time, which is cool. If I was that age, I would too, but I can't do it physically anymore. So I'm looking at that, and I won't trade it though, because I mean, some of my coolest memories with my dad and with my boys have been at Cougar Stadium watching my beloved
Yeah.
Cougs. But
Yep.
or at University of Utah games, fighting with the Utah fans in back of me, having beer thrown at me. That's great. I love it. I would never trade those experiences. But you know what though? At my age now, at 53, I'm sorry. I mean, I was so happy going to bed at 12:30 last night, thinking I do not have to deal with this shit. I mean, everybody else is out there on the road, and frankly, too, with the amount of money, obscene amount of money I mean, you could pay for a full year of Sling TV for one ticket. You would have to pay just for
It's so expensive.
yeah. So
It's so incredibly expensive.
so I don't know, man. I mean, if I was given free tickets, of course I'd go, but I have a hard time choking out $400 to go to a Sam
Yeah.
Houston BYU game.
And in comparison, like the Austin P game, I think those tickets are probably going for about, I mean, you could probably get them for like $50-$60, okay? But the Georgia game, the Texas A&M game I was looking at, even the South Carolina game, Tennessee Stadium holds, I mean, it's like 107,000 people.
Yeah, how
If you want a seat
how-
on the very, very top,
yeah, how
very, very top,
yeah, how good is that?
it is over $500 to sit. So imagine 107,000, and that's the very, very top.
Yeah.
Imagine the money that's coming in, and they are sold out. It is
Yeah.
sold out.
I mean, nothing beats when that crowd is just going absolutely ape
Oh my
crap,
God.
and you're in the middle of
Look.
it screaming yourself. I mean,
107,000 people at the top of your lungs. The earth shakes.
oh, you
okay?
feel it too.
And the SEC, okay, when you play on the road in the SEC, and I'm going to include Texas and Ohio next year, University of Texas holds 101,000 people. Texas A&M holds 102,000 people. Alabama holds 102,000 people. Tennessee holds 107,000 people.
You know, it's funny.
Florida holds 90,000 people. South Carolina holds 90,000 people.
I saw, so before the Florida Utah game, there were a couple people talking on the radio about how loud the University of Utah stadium is, and it's loud. I mean, I won't.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
showed all the seismic
Because it's closed in. It's packed in.
Yeah.
It's not like a bowl.
But they,
And that's the down part of Michigan State is like it's a bowl and it doesn't get super loud,
But they
Go ahead.
interviewed one of the Florida defensive guys after the game. They said, "Well, what do you think of the Utah?" He says, "Ah, that was nothing."
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
yeah, I was like, come on, you fans,
Look,
you're
look,
not as loud as you
50,
think you are.
56,000 loud people is nothing compared. Th- they will only see that once this whole year, and that's if they go to Vanderbilt, and that stadium will have more Florida fans than it will Vanderbilt fans.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Boy,
Now,
Vanderbilt
that's
sucks.
the only time that'll happen because like I said, even like Mississippi State is like 55,000, Ole Miss is like 60,000, and those are the very smallest of the small inside the SEC. 107 at Tennessee,
Wow.
90,000 at Florida, 102 at Alabama, 102 at Texas. I mean, they're huge. And not only are they huge, they're on top of you. It
You
is straight up in the air, right up on top of you, not spread out like in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, not like in Ann Arbor. It's like Ohio State. Ohio State's right on top of you. I mean, Penn State is right on top of you. It is,
well,
it's
hey,
awesome.
well, this week Sean wasn't able to be with us, and we were going to do a kind of a new thing, a reaction
Mhm.
segment. I think we're going to wait on that because part of it was based on the surprise, because one guy was going to play the video and the other two were going to react to it. So we're going to start that next week when Sean's feeling a little better. But and also too, we'll probably tie up a little more college football talk. We'll try not to always be about college football, everyone, but
Have to this week though,
Brent,
guys.
Brent,
Sorry,
I was
guys.
going to say Brent and I love college football. It's probably the one thing that ties us together the most. He always, the last 10 years, would call me up after this weekend. We had talked for about an hour about just college football. So, and he's always going to hate my kittens, and I'm always going to hate his Utes. But it should be fun this year. I think, unlike most years, even though the Utes aren't in the Big 12 this year, I have more interest now in this college football season than I have in a long time. And I think when the Utes and BYU are again playing rightfully on, and it might not be forever, it might just be for a short period of time, maybe 7, 10 years, but at least in our lifetime, the rest of our lifetimes, because we don't have that much time left. I think this is going
Right.
to be a fun time. And one other thing too, we've talked about it, Brent, but you keep telling us, and I'm starting to become more and more invested in this idea. Is coming out to see an Alabama Texas A&M game with you,
Come on
and
out, buddy.
we need to
We'll
do a
go.
like live shot from that because that
Mm.
would be. I'm sure the videos are not even close to what it's like being present at the game. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It is an experience.
I'll lose my 100
No.
pounds. Working on it right now, and I'll be there with you, man.
and, and and to go with what you said, I love SEC football just because of the speed, the action, and everything like that. But you are right. As a Utah man, I love my Utes. I hate the kittens. I hate everything about them. But football is better when we play each other
Oh
in
yeah,
November.
heck yeah.
I don't care about a September game.
Oh, it sucks.
I'm not going to have my life ruined in September. Okay. November, that's a different story. And it's that, you know, in growing up in Utah, and you can ask any expert in college football, the Holy War, Utah BYU is right up there near the top. It's right up there mentioned with Army and Navy. It's right up there mentioned with
Mhm.
Michigan, Ohio State.
Oh,
It is a
Big 12,
pure hatred rivalry.
Big 12, Big 12 fans from outside Utah BYU, they're like, I mean, I'm on this Big 12 board. They're getting pissed
Mhm.
off at the BYU Utah smack that's already started, and they're
It will
like,
always be there. We hate each other. It's the way. It doesn't matter if BYU was playing Sam Houston. We're going to be on that board going, "Geez, they play like shit. What a horrible team they are. Their mothers are horrible people."
Gator Blue,
Exactly. And
baby.
then the fighting fans going, "Oh, we love the Gators. Come on, Gators, kind of. Oh man, they look. It's the way it is.
Well,
It always has been. And
there's a
Lavell Edwards is the blame for that."
all right. There's a pragmatic side to college football, which I'm happy about. because I am sane. I'm not, but there is the fanatical side, and what are we? We're fans, right? So, I mean,
But let me ask you an honest question though. An honest question, okay?
yeah,
If Lavell Edwards hadn't come in and had a 20-year streak of just annihilating the Utes, okay?
yeah,
Because I throw this in your face all the time. The overall win-loss record isn't even close, okay? But for you and I who were born in the 70s and I dealt with 56-0 blowouts and getting just picked on like crazy in school. I dealt with that stuff that built that anger. If Lavell Edwards had not been the coach of BYU
yeah.
and they just ran through because they were nothing. I will,
They were.
as a Utah fan, we have a lot of respect for Lavell Edwards. We understand what Lavell Edwards did. He took a program of absolute nothing and he got a national championship. As
Yeah.
much as it pains me to say it,
That's the first
he
time you've
became a
said that,
quarterback.
Brett.
I know. And he built a university of great quarterbacks.
Well, and even
Steve
more
Young,
important than national
Jim
championship, that Cotton Bowl
McMahon.
win in '96, that to me was the pinnacle. I mean, that. I mean, but you're right. He built a national brand, and BYU
Right.
would be nothing
So that's what I
without
would ask is,
Lavell.
do you think the rivalry would still be the same
No,
if Lavelle hadn't been there?
no, because BYU would be like Utah State. I mean, to be honest, Utah State not a terrible program, but they've never.
Right. What have they done?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Utah. I mean, look. Let's face it. Okay, Salt Lake is the capital of Utah, and especially after the Mormons settled it in 1847. I mean, you're talking in 40 years later, after the freaking wagons got to Utah, the University of Utah basically was formed, even though it was a different
Oldest
name.
university west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, all the general authorities went to the University of Utah, even till recently. I mean, it's just in the next 20 or 30 years, church leadership is going to be mostly for BYU. So all the politicians, everyone that is anything in Utah went to the University of Utah. I mean, if you read there were these books. The LDS audience might know about them. That there's one of these guys that writes all these books about LDS themes. But anyway, he had this fictional family that lived through the 20s, 30s, and 40s during World War II. Anyway, basically, though, and I didn't know this, but University of Utah was everything. BYU was a high school team academy down in
They were an
Provo.
academy. Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah, they were an
nothing.
academy.
Stan
Yeah.
Watts was their best basketball coach. He did bring some notoriety. They did beat Utah a lot in basketball during the 40s and 50s. But that was it. And then 60s, you got your second win of all time in 65. And then 66, they won again. That was Virgil Carter, who was actually a decent quarterback in the NFL for a very short period of time. But then they started losing again in 68, 69, 70. Then Lavelle took in 72. And then I think it was he lost that first year, maybe, I think. And then after that, he just kept winning. Lost one time in 78, one
Yeah.
time in 88. Oh, do you know how bad I felt in 88? I was at Foot Locker working, and that damn field goal post got Scott Mitchell, son of a b. Still hate him. I mean, I
Luther
felt.
Ellis too.
Oh,
Luther Ellis was on that team. I mean, that was a good Utah team.
yeah, 88. I was like, damn it. And then they hired this guy named Ronnie McBride. And I'm like, what a joker
Yeah.
that guy is. And then 92, 34-31, 93, 34-31. I'm like, what the hell? This was like
Yeah.
sacrilege to us Cougar fans. And then anyway, it got good. I mean,
And McBride for what he was, helped put Utah to a level of where BYU was, because BYU, as much as I hate to say it, they were heads and tails above Utah athletically.
It was not even close.
They really were. Quarterback. They got every great quarterback to come to that school. They had good receiver. I mean, it just, oh God,
Well,
it just pains me to
you
say
know
it.
where
But McBride brought that
Matthew-
even.
Yeah, he got the Polynesians to stop considering BYU as the only place to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, I remember going to a football camp my brother was at, where Mafu was there, or McBride was there, and I mean, he comes to this practice, and he's in this minivan. McBride steps out, and then there were 7 or 8 Polynesian big boys getting out of
Yeah.
that minivan, and I'm thinking, wow, he just has got
And,
it
and
dialed
who
in.
was the assistant coach? Who was the assistant coach, and why was that? Kyle Whittingham,
Well, and the rivalry was fierce,
BYU player,
but
Kyle Whittingham
but
from BYU.
I think there was some respect back then. I think I think Urban and Kyle have. I mean, it's not as respectful. I mean, to be honest, and it wasn't a rivalry the last 8, 10 years, really. I mean,
Right.
Utah is pretty dominant. So I think we got one. So we're one on you right now. So we'll see what happens next year. I don't think BYU is going to win next year. I think they'll be breaking in a new quarterback, and Utah's going to have a pretty solid
I
defense.
was
That team's going to be good next year.
on Thursday night because I was just curious. I was looking at comparisons between Kyle and Lavell,
Yeah.
um, like coaching wise, because I couldn't remember how long Kyle's been doing it for. So this is Kyle's 19th year. Lavelle did it for 29 years.
Right.
You know,
Do you think he goes
so
10 more?
I don't know.
They'd have to have a statue of Kyle with his pants, with jogging pants, with the clipboard sitting there. Yeah, that would.
I think I think that Kyle and he absolutely should feel this way. I think he feels that he's got a legitimate shot in the next 5 years of being somewhere inside that national championship conversation. You know, if Utah doesn't lose to Florida last year like they did, those 3 turnovers, and then lose to what was it, Washington State? Oh God,
Yeah, yeah.
Utah's in that game, and I think that that's the drive that keeps Kyle coming back. And I think he's excited about this upcoming class and group of kids that he has, and I think he's excited about this year. And I would say if Kyle got into that playoff, and God, it would be awesome if they won. I think you'd probably see Kyle retire at that.
I think Kyle wants to go out on top. I think you're right. I think last year a lot of BYU fans were hoping if he could win that Rose Bowl, which Utah fans, you have not won a Rose Bowl yet. So this whole
We
bullshit
haven't.
about we won Rose Bowl,
No,
but you haven't won it yet. So be quiet
we've
and
been
win
there.
one first.
We've been there, and last year was extremely disappointing. Penn State showed that they were a faster, stronger,
Oh yeah,
better
they
team
wiped
than
you
we
out.
were,
Yeah,
hands down. Now,
I was a little
the
surprised.
we were living off the Ohio State game from the year before, which
What
was one of the
That
best
was a
college
good
football games
game.
ever
I'll
played.
admit, but good games don't win game. I mean, you didn't
No,
win.
they don't. They don't.
Penn State game was, yeah. I would be disappointed if I was a U fan. But the thing is, Cam Rising, what quarter did he go out in that game?
He didn't play at all in that game. He didn't play in the Penn
He
State
didn't
game.
play at all. Okay,
Mm,
yeah.
no.
So I think that would be one thing
And
I
our
would.
tight end didn't play either. The big
Kincaid.
kid.
Yeah, he chose
Yeah,
not to
Kincaid.
play in that game. That was weird. See, that's what I
Well, he
like
was
about a
injured or
12
something
team
like that.
playoff. This crap about ending your season early. I mean, what are you
Yeah.
thinking?
Yep.
Yeah. Plus,
That's
I heard they moved the portal to after the season, so the time that you can actually transfer. So that might help too a little bit. But
yeah.
I don't know, man. It's gonna be a fun year. I think next year though is gonna be the real fun year because 12-team playoff. I mean, it's gonna be kind of exciting
It's gonna be
because
different.
yeah, and
It's gonna be different.
I think BYU and Utah. I think Utah made ultimately the best decision. I think not going to the ACC. I guess now I see why that was on the table. Because you guys, they don't make these decisions in 1 week or 2 weeks. I think Stanford and Cal knew for a while that they wouldn't get invited to the Big 12, and maybe they didn't even want to go.
A long ways.
Yeah, but
God, that's a long
I
ways.
think Stanford and Notre Dame are tied together. I really do. I think there's something going on there. They've always been pretty close with the rivalry thing. It's the only game
Well,
Stanford won't.
Stanford, you still got the Michigan Notre Dame rivalry. That there's locked teams, Navy,
Yeah,
that Notre Dame always plays, and you're right. Stanford is one of those games. It's, that tradition. USC is the other one. They always play each other.
And Notre Dame
Um,
doesn't want to join the ACC in football, but it does like the fact that their basketball and all their other teams
right.
are so
And
close.
why should they though?
Yeah.
Why would Notre Dame join? They make more money than any other school.
Why would they want to be part of a conference with Michigan and Ohio
That's
State?
exactly.
Yeah. That would be stupid.
They would make less money. So until the NCAA puts the clamps down and says Notre Dame isn't Notre Dame of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
If you want to be part of this parade, you got to be part of a conference. They're going to continue to do that because they make more money than any other school.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the way it is.
It would be absolutely foolish for Notre Dame to join the Big Ten. I mean, and let's be honest, is the Big Ten going to be all of that and a pile of chips anyway? I mean, the SEC still has them by a mile.
As long as Ohio State is there and as long as Michigan is there, they are all that. Those are two superior footballs. And Penn State is right in that mix.
We need European.
But beyond that,
we need European.
It's dropped.
We need European regulation, man. That would be so exciting.
Drop down, raise up.
Heck yeah.
Hey, in closing, guys, and listeners, we are into September on a completely different shift. I want to say now is the time to prepare yourself for wintertime for your health. It's election time, so COVID is back around. But with that said, a couple words of advice: chalk up on vitamin C every single day. Take in as much vitamin C and zinc as you can.
Yeah, I think I just had COVID, and yeah, it's even a mild case, guys. It can, even though it's, I mean, Brent and I talk about the vaccine and act like it's, you should. I mean, it's more about we just don't like mandates and being told you have to do something. But with this,
I don't like the vaccine.
But with COVID, especially someone of my size and fitness level, it did affect me. I thought for last week I was having a stroke because I couldn't breathe very well.
Ooh, wow.
And it turned out I think it's just COVID, and so that's I have a camera person here. Anyway.
No, but I will say vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, get some zinc mixed inside there. If you can, and I highly recommend it, and you've heard me preach about it before, intermittent fasting. And the reason why I recommend doing it right now is because when you do that, your body burns sugars, which in turn increases your white blood cell count. It has been 2 years since I've been sick last.
I've been doing that intermittent fasting that you've been talking about the last 2 weeks, especially with when I was feeling pretty ill. And I'm telling you, my shirts are fitting a little looser. I'm having more energy.
And it makes you more healthy. That's the thing. It really does. September's the time you got to prepare for November and December. And so I want all of our listeners to be healthy all winter long. I'd like it if everybody can chime in and say, you know what, guys, it's March now. We made it through without getting sick. That's what we want everybody to have. Have a healthy
Yeah, we don't want to be going to any more funerals this year. So
Nope.
we missed the other guy, Glenn, and it's we're all at an age now that we need to start being a little more aware of our health. And so I agree with Brent. Stay safe out there. So, all right, guys, it was great. Brent, see you later, man. We'll
take care, guys.
Yeah, watch that LSU game tonight. I think it is, right?
LSU, Florida.
There you go.
SEC.
It's a Florida State, right? Florida State.
SEC.
SEC.
Bye, guys.
Anyway, I'll talk to you later, brother. All right, see you.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to 3 Dadbods, and make sure to catch their past episodes on Spotify, Apple, and Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure and leave a comment to help stroke their fragile egos.